Okay, super. So again, welcome everybody. We do have a formal presentation to walk through. And so we'll get right to it, and then we will take questions from folks, and hopefully a lot of what's in the presentation will answer questions that you might have. So with that, Kate, can we move to the next slide? So just a few little housekeeping things. Please keep your phone muted during the presentation. And if you would submit questions via the chat feature, that would be great. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. For those questions that we're not able to respond to, we will, on this call, we will post answers in the FAQ and post it in the portal. And then also a recording of the webinar will be available on the MHDO website. Okay, next slide. So there are a few folks that are here with me. So they're listed here in the slide deck. There are also contacts for you all. And I'm going to turn over the presentation to Kate in a few slides. So we're sort of tag teaming this. And Philippe, who I think many of you might be familiar with, our compliance officer, as well as Leanne Candora with HSRI is also on the phone, or on this call, I should say. Okay, our agenda, we have gone through the welcome. So just quickly, we'll do an intro to the requirements. Then we want to talk through some of the new requirements, the implementation timeline, resources and technical support, and then get to any questions that you might have. And I'm going to move through this quick. I want to apologize in advance. This may be more detailed than you want to know, but I want to level set so that everybody is sort of on the same page. So just as a reminder, the Maine Health Data Organization, or MHDO, is required by Public Law 2019, Chapter 470, to collect data from prescription drug manufacturers, wholesale drug distributors, and pharmacy benefit managers. We refer to all of these groups as reporting entities. In our rule, which is referred to as Chapter 570, that rule defines the data collection requirements. There were recent changes that were made to Chapter 570 that became effective in December of 2021. And a copy of the rule with those updates is available in the link. And you can also get to it directly just going to our website. The legislature in Maine also enacted LD 686, which is now Public Law 21, Chapter 305. And the title of that is an act to increase prescription drug price transparency. And that new law became effective October 18th of 2021. Next slide. The reason why I'm sharing this with you is because there are several provisions in the rule that are inconsistent with the new law. A timing issue. When this happens, the statute, the new law, overrides inconsistencies in the rule. So the final version of Chapter 570, that again, we just provided you the link in the previous slide, includes notes in the rule that address the inconsistencies again, between the new law and the rule. And one of the notes that is most relevant to this discussion is what is stated below. And that is, as of the reporting year 2022, the MHDO will be posting a list of NDCs, and the manufacturers will no longer have to make notifications when one of their drugs hits one of the triggers defined in the law. So that was one of the changes in the law. It's not reflected in the rule explicitly. However, we have this note that states that we will comply with the requirement in the new law. Next slide. So before I get into this, just one thing I want to say before we move on. So again, when you look at the rule, you'll see some of these notes. And I just wanted to bring to your attention the reason why there are notes is it's our way, again, of addressing the inconsistencies between the law and the rule. In addition, there is an enforcement update that I want to be clear about. The MHDO Board of Directors voted to partially suspend the enforcement of the provision in the rule that applies to pharmacy benefit managers and the collection of price and component data. And we're only going to enforce that the data be submitted that is relevant to Maine rather than the United States. And again, this is the way that the board is handling what we believe was the intent of the legislature, and consistent with what the pharmacy benefit managers had suggested. So again, you won't see this in the rule, but it is a decision that the board has made and what we will enforce. Okay, next slide. So our purpose of today is to review some of the updates to 570 and the new requirements. There have been some tweaks to some of the definitions, and I want to thank many of you that provided feedback to help us tighten up some of the definitions. There are some updates around registration and submission requirements, and then the reporting specifications. Next slide. So the reporting, the registration requirements, and Kate, am I going to keep going or are you going to take it from here?
I can take over.
That would be fabulous.
Sure. Okay, so now we're going to start to get into some of the logistics and timelines around some of these updates. So by January 30th, 2022, everyone is expected to log into the portal and review their organization summary information and user information. You'll need to review and make updates, and also if there have been no updates, we expect you to sort of review it and confirm the information is accurate. If your organization was not registered in 2021 or you need help with your account, you can reach out to the MHDO help desk and we'll assist you with next steps. So again, I think Karen Lee, please feel free to jump in, but here, this is some information about the new requirements and MHDO's role in providing a public notification of substantial drug price changes or introduction of new drugs. So no later than January 30th, 2022, and annually thereafter, MHDO will produce and post on its publicly accessible website a list of NDCs for which the manufacturer has during the prior calendar year met the following criteria about increases or the introduction of new drugs. And then on or before February 15th of each year, the MHDO will also produce and post on its publicly accessible website a list of drug product families for which it intends to request pricing component data from reporting entities. Then as far as notifications, not sooner than 30 days after the public posting of the list of drug product families, the MHDO will notify the manufacturers, wholesale distributors, and PBMs via email and the portal that the pre-populated pricing component data templates, including specific NDCs for which the reporting is required, are available for download from the MHDO prescription drug price data portal. Prescription drug manufacturers, wholesale drug distributors, and pharmacy benefit managers shall then report their pricing component data to the MHDO no later than 60 days after they've been notified of the availability of that information from the MHDO. And again, this is all described in the sections referenced here. So again, getting a little more specific in terms of the timeline, you'll be able to download the pre-populated pricing component templates via the portal. For this year, the date will be March 17th, 2022. From again, you'll be emailed and notified of the availability of these pre-populated templates. You'll log into the portal and you'll be able to download them. You'll complete the templates within your own environment and submit the completed templates by May 16th, 2022. Again, via the data submission portal. This slide has an example of what the pre-populated Excel template will look like. For those of you that have reported in years past, this will be largely similar. There may be a couple clarifications based on some of the information Karen Lee just reviewed in terms of changes to make things consistent between the rule and the law. And now I'm just going to do a quick demo of the MHDO prescription drug price data portal for many of you, again, who have submitted before. Hopefully this is primarily a refresher. And for anybody who's new, hopefully you'll find this helpful. And again, we'll be going through at the end of this demonstration how you can get help if you need it. So again, I'm going to walk through a brief demo of the portal and how it relates to the requirements that we've just gone through. Okay. So once you've logged in, if you need to make updates to your own user account, you can do so by going up into the top right corner. You'll see your username and you have the ability to make changes to the details or change your password. On the home page here, each entity, you'll have an indication of which entity name you're logged in under. Some of you I know are associated with a number of submitting entities. So again, just keep an eye on this information to make sure you're logged in and making changes to the correct organization that you intend to make updates to. You will also see on this home screen the status of your registration, template submissions, and assessment requirements. So for this particular entity, we see that for 2022, the summary, the annual registration status is incomplete for both components, and the template requirements are also incomplete, assessments as well. Previously, this demo account is identified as a manufacturer, and previously you would have seen a heading for the notification section. As Karen Lee indicated, that is no longer required and has been removed as a requirement from the portal. You'll also see at the bottom of the screen updates or system messages. This will include information that we distribute primarily via email. It's also posted here. In order to complete your registration, as I mentioned, you need to review the information in your summary screen for your organization. Again, we want you to make sure, review this information, see if there are any updates that need to be made. If not, you can click the confirm button and confirm that registration. Now it indicates that that component of the registration is complete. To review the users, you click on that menu item. Again, you need to review what's currently there and make any edits or additions to your user information. We do need a user identified for each role or contact type. They are administrator, compliance, submitter, and assessment. A single user can hold all of those roles, but again, we need somebody identified as each of those. If you need to add a new user, you can by completing the required information. And if you need to delete a user because they're no longer associated with your organization or the role for this requirement, you can delete them as well. And again, once they've completed those updates, you can confirm the registration information. And now this information is telling you your registration is complete. So once you're brought back to the home screen, again, you can see the annual registration is now complete. And the next step in the process that you will not be doing immediately, but in the coming months, is that you'll be able to go and locate your pre-populated pricing component data. And that's under your templates menu. It'll be here for you to download. And again, you'll complete the required fields in your own environment and then upload them for this year through the portal. There's some information in here about the file naming requirements for each of those completed templates. We provide the files in a named way, and you won't need to make any updates to them essentially. We'll also have a number of resources here in the portal for contacting us via the help desk, or if you have any compliance or assessment questions, the MHDO contact for that. We also have a user manual, an FAQ document, which again, if you're a new user, this is a helpful resource for walking you through the steps. We also have an FAQ for a lot of frequently asked questions that we'll continue to update as we move through this process over the next couple of months. And then there's also the logout button at the top right corner. So once you're completed your work, you can log out here. And then I'll also point out here on this screen, there's a recover an existing account action. If you have forgotten your username or password, since it's been a while since you logged in, you can make use of this feature to recover your account. If you run into problems, again, you can reach out to our help desk and we'll be working with you on that. I'm going to go through the final slides here again. Here's a summary of the timeline that we reviewed in each of the slides. So we're having a webinar today. As I mentioned, registration must be completed by the 30th, and that involves reviewing the summary information for your organization and updating and reviewing your user information. It's important that the user information is accurate in terms of the role identification, so that the appropriate people within your organization receive targeted emails about requirements or updates. So, and then again, by the end of January, MHDO will produce and post on its publicly accessible website a list of prescription drugs for which manufacturers have met any of the 3 criteria during the prior calendar year. By February 15th, MHDO will produce and post the list of drug product families for which it intends to request pricing component data from manufacturers, wholesale drug distributors, and pharmacy benefit managers. And then by March 17th, HSRI, MHDO's data vendor, notifies manufacturers, wholesale distributors, and PBMs via email that the pre-populated pricing component data templates, including specific NDCs for which reporting is required, are available for download from the portal. And then by May 16th, the completed pricing component data templates will be due via the portal. This slide provides some resources. There's a link to the general MHDO website. There's a link to the rules and statutes, which Karen Lee referred to earlier in the presentation. And then there also is a specific website for pricing component data submitters within the MHDO website that will have important information, including a recording of today's webinar and the slides that we've reviewed today as well. And then finally, a link to the MHDO prescription drug price data portal. Again, technical support can, if you need it, the MHDO help desk is available to help you with any technical issues with the portal. And Filippo is also available for any compliance and assessment related questions as well. And please, as we reviewed in the beginning, if you have questions, we have quite a few people on the phone, so we're going to try and field questions via the webinar chat. I see we have a number that we can go through in a few minutes. We'll address as many as we can, and anything we're not able to get to today will be provided in the frequently asked questions available in the portal. So I will pause there. Karen Lee, is there anything you'd like to add before we start going through the webinar questions?
No.
Okay, so first question, why not January 31st for some of these deadlines? It's the way it's written into the rule. We need to do some of these things by January 30th. Karen Lee, sorry, I see you already responded to that in the chat. So if there's a question, if you log into the portal now and under template submission status for 2022, if you see unrequired right now, that is just because we haven't gone through the process of actually figuring out what will be required yet. You will be notified when the templates are posted to the website, and at that time, if it says unrequired, you are not required to submit. So at this point, you should not be going off of any of that information yet in the portal. We'll be providing information later according to the timeline, specifying who is required to submit and who is not required. There's a question about showing a demo of the wholesale or distributor section as well. They're essentially the same. The requirements in the portal for manufacturers, wholesale distributors, and PBMs is identical at this point in the portal. It'll be the Excel template, which will differ when it comes time to submit data. Similar to last year, will the Excel templates only be available to the entity is required to submit? Yes. So if your entity for some reason if you're a manufacturer, for example, and none of your products have met the criteria for which we're going to be asking for additional information on, you won't be required to submit. But again, we'll be communicating all of this when we reach that stage in the timeline. The templates for 2022 are not available at this time. You should not see them in the portal. What I showed you via the demo was, again, just a demo. You do not have access to templates for 2022 yet.
And Kate, this is Karen Lee, when will?
Yeah. Let's see, let's go back. So the templates will be available in the portal on or before March 17th. So until then, you will not see any 2022 templates available in the portal. We need sorry.
I'm sorry, Kate, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Nope, I was just going to say MHDO needs the opportunity to go through the steps that occur before there. We're making some of this information publicly available before telling specific entities what they need to submit. And
I think that that's the important point. And Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, but there will only be a template if we're asking for a drug that your organization needs to report on.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so manufacturers no longer need to notify the MHDO if they've met the 3 stated criteria. Karen Lee, the question is, where does MHDO acquire the data to publicly post this information? Is that something you want to answer?
Sure. Yep. So we have a license through our data vendor to Metaspan. So that is where we are accessing the information on what drugs hit one of our triggers as defined in the statute.
Thank you. And the next question is just, is this for Maine only? And yes, that clarification has been made so that we're only asking for information that's Maine based versus the entire US.
Kate?
Yep.
Just wanted to clarify, that's only for PBMs, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, manufacturers and wholesale distributors will be reporting for the entirety of the US market.
Thank you. Next question, if you have a new product launching in 2022, is there any reporting in advance, or is the reporting only is only reporting due if notified by MHDO? It's the latter. You do not need to do any advance reporting of new products. Are we to register in the portal every year? Yes. Each entity that meets the criteria as defined in Chapter 570 is expected to register in the portal every year. These slides and eventually the recording of today's session will be made available on the MHDO website. January 30th is a Sunday this year. It does not shift the deadline based, again, it's as written into the rule. So if that means likely that most folks will need until the 28th, we'll want to get the changes in by the 28th. If for some reason you're unable to do so and need an extension, that's when you would communicate with the MHDO.
And Kate, what you were referring to there is the registration?
Yes.
Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are two deadlines of the 30th. One is our MHDO's public posting of drugs that hit of NDCs that hit one of the triggers.
Correct.
And then the second is the registration.
Correct.
Okay.
And Karen Lee, you can correct me if I'm misstating, but I expect that MHDO will attempt to get their public posting up on the 28th versus.
Agreed.
Okay.
And Kate, one other just follow up. So I wasn't sure if, when do we anticipate posting the slides on the website? Is it this week, or will it take us a little longer?
Well, maybe we can talk about that offline, Karen Lee, but we can
Okay.
certainly email out these slides this week.
Okay. So we'll get them out to folks this week via email, and then we'll get them posted on the website at some point. I think it takes a little time to have them transcribed or something, but they'll be up on the site soon.
Great. So next question, Karen, maybe you can address is, how is a company notified of assessment fees?
So I'm actually going to turn that over to Phil.
Great.
There's a notification by the MHDO for all active and registered entities to pay the assessment fee. That usually goes out sometime in July, which is the beginning of the state's fiscal year. The state fiscal year runs from July 1st of one year through June 30th of the next. So all of the entities that are registered and active will be notified by the MHDO.
Thank you. Karen Lee, the next question, is this related to the Maine State Pharma Transparency Report?
So I'm not sure if that is a different report from the report that MHDO is required to produce. I tend to think that it may be the same report, but I'm not clear. I'm happy to talk to Larry offline, but the MHDO is responsible for developing an annual report on using this, in part, this data that we're collecting, that we're talking with you all about. So I'm just not 100% sure if we're referring to the same report.
Great, thank you.
Kate?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to add something to the response I just gave about assessments that ties into registration. It's extremely important that all entities make sure that they have at least one contact person for all of the roles that we have for users, so that if there are any issues with submission of data or compliance on any other matter, assessments, we send notifications of assessments to the assessments contact, so that we have good emails for each of the roles that we have. And it's very important that these be updated or verified by the end of the month, or by the 30th, I should say.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is related to, do we report on drugs sold throughout the US or only drugs sold in Maine? And so I've gone back to the slide where there's an update about the enforcement of this information. So for pharmacy benefit managers, only the data being reported is only relevant to Maine. So for the manufacturers and the wholesale distributors, you're still reporting for the US.
And Kate, if I could,
believe,
oh, go ahead.
as
Go
I
ahead.
believe Karen Lee had mentioned, it will appear as a note in the rule. So if you look under, I can't remember if it's 2I or J3, which will be the section, the template for PBMs. You will see a note there until we can actually go through and integrate or make sure that the rule catches up with statute. It will not, that note will not be seen regarding the manufacturers and wholesale distributors. This only applies to the PBMs.
Karen Lee, did you have anything to add?
I wanted to also make a comment that, reading into the question, do we report on drugs sold throughout the US or only drugs sold into Maine? I do want to reinforce that some of the changes in the new law allows MHDO to look beyond just those drugs that hit one of the triggers. And we are looking at our top 25 most commonly utilized drugs, most costly drugs that Mainers are taking or spending money on. And we are going to try and focus what we are asking for on those drugs that are most impactful to Mainers. So I don't know if that helps also answer the question. We really are trying to understand, what's going on in our state in terms of some of the drugs that are the most costly and most utilized.
Great, thank you. So next question is just, I had referenced that the pricing component templates are not available in the portal yet. And just to reiterate, I'm going to go back to the timeline. So right now you should be focused on completing the registration requirements, which is updating your summary information and your user information in the portal. And then you will be notified on or before March 17th that the requests for data submission are available. You will also be notified if you are not required to submit any information. So you, again, March 17th is the deadline. We will be in touch with you either way, whether you're expected to submit or not required to submit this year.
Kate, before we go on to the next question, can we just go back to the issue we were just talking about with PBMs only needing to report at the state level? I just want to clarify something that was said, and this is all challenging at best, so my apologies for any confusion. But this change in enforcement is not noted in the rule. So just to be clear, when you go to the rule and you look under the pharmacy benefit manager report section of the rule, you will not see this language. But we are telling you that the board has suspended enforcement of what is in the rule, which is the US. They've suspended that requirement. Instead, they're requiring just Maine only. So again, I don't want to confuse people, but just to be clear, that's the way it's currently structured. And then to Phil's point, as soon as we can open the rule back up and do some of this updating, we will do so. But in the meantime, I think, having this slide deck along with a copy of the rule, you will have all of the relevant information. And you can sort of validate all of it by having a copy of the law as well, which we're making available for you all. Okay, sorry about that.
Thanks, Karen Lee. Okay, so the next question is, if we aren't doing any business in the state, will we still be required to report? Phil, do you want to answer this question and how you'd like this handled on a, as folks need to discuss this with you?
Is that question from a wholesale distributor, a manufacturer? What is the entity type?
Shoshana, I don't know if you want to answer that. This is from you. PBM. Thank you.
It's a PBM. A PBM that is not doing business in the state. Essentially, if you go by the definition.
Phil, why don't we
Yep.
follow up on that in writing?
I think that would be good.
Because I think there's some decision tree stuff going on there, and it's not as easy to, so we will follow up, Shoshana, in writing, so everybody will have the response.
We will do that.
Excellent.
Okay, next question relating to the WAC and Medicare Part D thresholds. I'm just gonna go back to the slide with that, just so everybody has that in front of them. The question is the threshold going to be 670 or the new threshold of 830? And I'm not able to answer that right now. Karen Lee, do you know for sure?
I don't, so we'll follow up in writing.
Okay, sounds good. To report a new drug launched in 2021, that is on January 30th. Should be in there. So if you had a new drug that launched in 2021, you do not need to do anything at this time. You are not, manufacturers no longer need to notify the MHDO proactively. This will be likely part of the postings that MHDO makes available on the website by the end of the month. But you, again, no action, additional action regarding pricing component data can begin until March 17th. And again, this also applies to new products. You only need to communicate information to the MHDO until you've heard from them first. And that will happen in March. There's another question, are there fines for being late? The short answer is yes, and maybe we can provide some information in writing after this, just a follow up of the enforcement rules that the MHDO has. There's a question about where to register in the portal. There's only a recover existing account. If you do not currently have an account in the portal, you need to contact our help desk and we will get you set up to get registered as a user in the portal. The next question is some clarification about how much the assessment fee is. Karen, are you able to answer that right now?
I think, and Phil can correct me if I'm wrong, but it is a flat amount of $500 annually.
That's correct, Karen Lee.
Thank you. Can we have multiple people registered for the same category, for example, compliance or assessment? Yes, absolutely. You can have multiple people registered for the same category. You can have a single person registered for multiple categories. There's a lot of flexibility in the user accounts to handle whatever arrangements you have within your organization. And yes, just again, if you are not currently registered in the portal, you need to contact the MHDO help desk with some information about your organization, and we'll help you get set up. And just one other thing I'll just note that's here. Our help desk is working with hundreds of organizations as part of this reporting requirement. So if you are sending us an email or giving us a call, we please encourage you to include your US tax ID and the name of your organization in your communication. That'll just help us speed up our responses to you and make sure we're giving you targeted information. Next question. Can you give an example of a drug product family? Karen Lee, is that something you want to answer here? Is that something we want to provide in writing?
I think we can provide more details in writing, but I'll just say that a drug product family is basically a group of one or more prescription drugs that share a unique generic drug description in drug form. Sort of the non-trade name. I don't know if that makes any sense for the person that asked the question, but we can give some specific examples.
Great. Okay, I've come to the end of the chat questions. If anybody has another one that they want to submit, please do so now. And again, we have multiple resources available. If you think of something later, we'll be providing all of this in writing, responding some of these questions in writing. So one more. Would a drug product family be a therapeutic category?
Would a drug product family be a therapeutic category? I want to follow up in writing because I don't want to say anything that is not accurate. So Erica, we'll get back to you guys in writing.
Okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right, well, Kate, thank you. And Phil, thank you. And for all of you that have attended this session, I want to thank you. I know you're all very, very busy. These are crazy times, and we very much appreciate you taking your time to be here. We will get this stuff posted. As Kate said, we'll send this out via email as well. We'll get some follow-up on the questions. And again, we are resources. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And here's to better days in 2022. And again, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.